Assalamu alaikum Khawateen Hazrat, welcome to the Ambassadors Lounge. Last couple of weeks have seen violent protests in Bangladesh, and as a result of these protests, 150 or more than 150, around some say around 170 people were killed and scores were injured. Now these demonstrations were organized by university students against the discriminatory quota, government job quotas. According to this, these quota system presently there, for 30% of the seats in the government service are reserved for the grandchildren of war veterans, and 44% are reserved for merit, and then 20% for women and backward districts. Now, these protests initially were peaceful, but because of the government high-handedness and government response to these protests, they became violent. The government had to impose curfew, and the protests still continued. Lately, when the Supreme Court intervened and it scaled back the quota, reserved quota for the war veterans. To discuss this thing, ladies and gentlemen, I have with me my regular friend, Ambassador Riaz Bukhari. He is a specialist on Bangladesh because he has served there. Most importantly, we have with us another very important friend who has also served in Bangladesh, Ambassador Ayaz Mohammad Khan. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ayaz, let me start with you. Could you please, for the sake of our viewers, help us to understand what is this Bangladesh quota reform movement?
Well, Bangladesh quota reform movement was established in 1972, immediately after Bangladesh came into being, after separating from Pakistan in 1971, to award or to recognize the services of the veterans or those Bengalis Bangladeshis who participated in the war against Pakistani forces in Dhaka, in Bangladesh. It was decided by Sheikh Mujib at that time that a separate quota in government jobs would be allocated for the family members and the veterans who themselves fought against the Pakistani forces in Bangladesh, in East Pakistan at that time. And this was going on. Then in 2018, actually, there was growing criticism about this quota because this quota was not being meted out judiciously or honestly to those families, but it was being used as a tool by the government, by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman himself, late Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and her daughter, now Sheikh Hasina, who is the Prime Minister, as political rewards to the political bedfellows. So, with growing unemployment in Bangladesh and growing income disparity, the unrest was also growing among the youth, which, if I may recall, today it stands 1 out of every 8 individual is a job seeker in Bangladesh and is unemployed. So, as the economic disparity increased and there was difficulty in getting jobs in the government, the youth was getting restive with the government of Sheikh Hasina, and it transformed into a peaceful movement against the government of Sheikh Hasina. But when, as you said, that it was mishandled or high-handedness was shown by the government, it turned violent. So when it turned, and also the turning point was that in June this year, the High Court of Dhaka restored the 30% quota, which was abolished in 2018 under the pressure of the social movements and other opposition political parties. When it was restored, then of course the youth got further enraged, and they decided to come on the streets. And when they came on the streets, then the government, thinking that force or power could quell this peaceful movement, they used excessive power, which of course turned violent, and we had what we had until few days ago.
You are right. Yes, in a country with 18 million jobless youths, the quota system sounds too discriminatory for the youth.
It certainly is. I mean, anywhere in the world, in such an economy which is developing and I would say it's basically one commodity economy, because Bangladesh has been thriving on its garments, ready-made garments exports to the outside world, which are massive. I mean, they stand at about 33 to 35 billion dollars a year, and but the dividends that should have come down,
What makes the government jobs so lucrative? This quota system is for the government jobs. So what makes it so lucrative that the youth simply became enraged?
Well, you can say that if I may say that that there is massive corruption, that has crept into the society as a norm in Bangladesh, and youth is seeking easy gratifications, out of these jobs. So probably what I would say that private sector, which is mono commodity dependent, I would say on garments only, there is not much development, or there are not many opportunities in other private sector jobs, as such for the youth. So they turn towards lucrative in a sense that they provide you an opportunity to use unethical means to make money.
But then there are also, this is saying just this. Yes,
I would like to add something, but Ambassador Ayaz has just stated, job quota has always been a problem in Bangladesh, as well as before the creation of Bangladesh, on the basis of population parity between East and West, two wings of Pakistan. And after creation of Bangladesh, the founder of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, introduced only 20% merit-based appointments. The rest was mostly, jobs were recruited by employing the freedom fighters or their family members, or some on the basis of minorities or ethnicities. So this continued. As far as the number of, Mukti Bahini or freedom fighters is concerned, it is less than 1% of the population, while more than 30% jobs in the government sector alone have been allocated for less than 1% population of the country. So this became an issue with the increase in population, with more people aspiring for higher education and then coming into the job market, and then they were facing problems because the government started giving jobs to win sport from those people who were extending sport to the government. So this became a tool in the hands of the government to oblige those people who were supporting the government cause.
Okay, Riaz, continuing this thing. Now, Bangladesh Supreme Court has annulled the High Court decision, and the government has accepted the decision of the Apex Court. Now, according to some analysts, there are undercurrents of anger against the present administration. Now, do you think that this decision of the court and the readiness of the government, which has accepted the decision, do you think it's going to quell the violence?
Not, at the moment, I think, because, the people who are spearheading this movement, they have not, accepted this verdict so far, because they have some demands, demands on the government to fulfill.
Yes.
Because they have, already more than 174 young people, educated youth have been killed. Huge number of, the students have been arrested. They are in the jails. And, their demand is that they should be released first. And they also want to, those ministers who ordered this, violent
Operations.
behavior of the security apparatus, they should resign, or they should force to leave the government.
They used these shotguns.
I mean, obviously, because as I mentioned, since 1971, a large number of, supporters of the government, they have been appointed against, the government jobs, using this quota system. So they are virtually supporter of the ruling party. So, they don't like, the other people. Maybe they also belong to the opposition parties like BNP or Jamaat Islami or some other groups, to come out and start agitating against the Awami League government. So, we should see into that how, these people who got the jobs on the basis of quota, they are entrenched into the government machinery. And they use their authority to quell the challenge to the government.
One of the demands, you were talking of the demands of the students, the new demands of the students. One of the demand is that the Prime Minister should apologize.
Yep.
Now, yes, keeping in view the personality of Sheikh Hasina, do you think this?
Will she?
Will she apologize?
No, she's too adamant, actually, too stubborn, and too egoistic to actually accede to the demand of this demand, particularly that according a public apology to the people, because she still thinks that she wields a lot of power,
which she does,
political power, which she does actually. But let's admit that her power has been dissipating a lot over a period of time. I mean, the way she has been handling the opposition parties, the way she has been handling the violating the human rights, gross violations of human rights within the country, brutal suppression of political dissent, political forces, and of course economic disparity, as I mentioned in the beginning. They are all contributing factors, to this thing. I think this is a culmination of the long process that began 15 years ago when she came to the helm of affairs. So in my view, as you asked, that in my view she is too stubborn to actually accede to this particular demand.
Your take on this?
Apology, again has been an issue in the Bangladeshi society. Demanding apology from a foreign country, or demanding apology from an opposition leader, or demanding apology from the government.
Yes.
This has always been an issue over there. So, I don't think, the government will accede to that demand. But we should not ignore the fact that Bangladesh is a big country with a population of almost 175 million.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
And during the last elections, the Awami League could only vote less than 27 or 28% of votes.
The turnout was 27.5%.
Yes, yeah.
Because there was only one party.
Yeah.
The main opposition party did not participate in this.
And the 50 odd independent candidates who were elected, they also were affiliated to the...
in one way or the other, yes.
In one way or the other, yes. Ayaz, coming to you. Now, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina Wajid, she called the protesters Razakars.
Yep.
And in a speech she said, why do they have so much resentment towards freedom fighters?
Yep.
If the grandchildren of the freedom fighters don't get quota benefits, should the children of Razakars get the benefit? Now, this is a very loaded term in the context of Bangladesh.
Yes.
And when she used this term, this really provoked the students, and this and the violence increased after this statement.
Certainly it did. Certainly it did. I think it added fuel to the fire, because Bangladeshis are very touchy about this particular subject of Razakars, because they think that, of course, that they fought their freedom out of fighting the Razakars, those who were siding with the Pakistani armed forces in East Pakistan. Now, calling them, it tantamounts to giving a, calling a big swear word, for them, Razakar. And retaliating on that, they called Sheikh Hasina Charabar. And Charabar is a word in Bengali which means an autocrat. So there was, an exchange of acrimony between the government, and the common people on this particular subject. But I would say that, when you are sincere in reaching to a peaceful settlement of any dispute, you have to resort to mutually understand each other's point of view. You have to respect each other's point of view, and then you sit down and trying to find a middle way. But by calling other people's names, does not really lead to. It only leads to further bitterness between the two parties, which actually did, and it further added fuel to the fire which was already going on.
Yes, the Bangladesh society has still not been able to come out of this, out of their history. They're still using the words of Razakars, and I mean, that's it reflects a society which is yet to mature.
Whenever the Awami League is in power in Bangladesh, the word Rajakar is mostly used to discredit the political opponent. This has happened in Pakistan as well. Here, always the ruling party, the government, if it wishes to discredit some other political party or leader, they would say that this man or his father or his elders extended support to the Indian National Congress. So, in our political history, in former East Pakistan and West Pakistan, as well as even now, we don't forgive those people who use their choice, political choice, but now they are part of that country or this country.
But the Bangladesh society is still not prepared to accept them, to embrace these people. They may have made mistakes, whatever it is.
What they have done in the past, they hanged the leadership of the Jamaat Islami Bangladesh, and also hanged those people who supported, the West Pakistan during their, struggle against West Pakistan. So they have not forgiven them, even their families. Even today, they are regarded as Rajakar politically in Bangladesh. I think the Awami League leadership, only they can develop consensus by talking to their political opponents. But what has happened during the last 12 years, 15 years, we have seen huge human rights violation. We have seen a number of media persons killed, imprisoned. We have seen ban on certain political parties. We have seen, the hanging of certain high-profile politicians because they extended support. During their war of liberation, they were on the other side.
So there is no forgiveness for these people as long as Awami League is there. Yes?
This is how I think.
If I may add to this, what Ambassador Bukhari has just mentioned, well, that there is always a philosophical foundation of any nation to exist, to survive, to come into being. Now, the philosophical foundation for Bangladeshis is actually, based on hatred against West Pakistanis. Justified or not justified, that's a different subject to talk about. Okay. Now, but what happens is that when you instill in your coming generations, day after day, you feed them that you became Bangladeshis by fighting a war, by spilling blood, by cutting the throats, of each other people. I mean, we may agree that excesses were meted out to the Bengalis, by our erstwhile government, and the armed forces, but they also resorted to high amount of violence, at that time. And now, when I was there, what I saw was that that day after day, their only raison d'être seems to be to thrive as a nation, to exist as a nation based on hatred against a particular country, against a particular community. Now, when you come to forgiveness, large-hearted people, big nations, they always try to set aside what has happened to them. I mean, we can talk about Armenia, we can talk about the communities even within the United States. I mean, how the Gora people came there, and they massacred the local population there, but they somehow amalgamated into the society over a period of time. Now, but when you continue to feed your progeny, your posterity, that that the reason you came into being was based on blood, and even the flag shows the red sun means the blood, that was.
It symbolizes the blood.
It symbolizes the blood, as such. So you are stealing away from the hearts of your coming generations the virtue of forgiving other people. You are constantly telling them that you have to continue to hate, a particular community.
Minusing the reconciliation
you can never
from the
reconcile
character.
with them. Yes, yeah. Like, so for example, the question of apology. Well, General Musharraf, late General Musharraf, in so many words, he when he visited, Bangladesh, he visited the Minar of Shaheed Minar, there, and he expressed in so many words the regret, that had happened, in the past. Maybe in some let's say concealed words, he also apologized to the Bangladeshi people, but this did not suffice them. What they expect from Pakistan is an explicit public apology. Now, why we don't that? Because it has legal connotations, it has legal consequences, because then you talk about war reparations, because if a community says that, okay, we have carried out, excesses against you, then they would come up, with some other, issue. So it's a very complex thing, that is happening.
Yeah, there is one question. Before 1971, it was East Pakistan. It was East Bengal before 1947. And they suffered a lot. The people of East Pakistan or East Bengal, they suffered a lot at the hands of their neighboring country.
No doubt.
And nobody talked about that.
Well, we can talk about this subject. I mean, it's a very extensive subject, and I have my own
views on that.
And my own fairly unbiased views, but it requires probably a
we will probably have
program,
another.
yes,
We'll bother you
and
again.
we can talk about
Riaz,
it
coming to
later.
you. My question is: has the government or has Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina Wajid over politicized the 1971 war for her own interests?
Since 1971, from 1972 onwards, whenever the Awami League was in power, and they encashed, I would say, they built up their political base on the basis of hate against another country, and obviously they want to they put their the freedom fighters at a very high pedestal. It's okay, they should, but continually building on that aspect of their political history, I think almost, more than 50 years now. Still, if you go there, you look into their, textbooks, you look into their
Yes,
political
everywhere.
speeches,
Everywhere,
you look
yes.
into their,
Yeah.
public gathering conducted by the Awami League. People talk about that.
If I may,
Yeah, please.
cite a very, very small incident, and I'll be very brief. Once we went to Chittagong, Chamber of Business, Business of Chamber of Commerce, and I was giving a presentation on the opportunities that Pakistan provided for Bangladeshi businessmen and investors in Pakistan at that time. I was, when the question and answer session began, a gentleman stood up and he asked me the same question, that before we talk about mutually economic relations or trade and whatever, you first have to, your government has to extend a formal apology to the people of Bangladesh. And I tried to explain to him that it's a very complicated issue, and when well, I tried to answer the question not to his satisfaction, but when the lunch began, the man walked towards me and he said, well, Excellency, I would like to extend my sincere apologies to you for asking this question. Actually, I'm an Awami League man, and it is our party line.
Yeah.
And since you were addressing, us, the businessmen, openly, so to present myself as a loyal Awami League, I had to pose this question to you. So,
But how has this over-politicization of 1971 war affected the society, the Bangladeshi society?
I did mention that. I think I said that if
has it divided the society? I mean, of course, it has prevented the wounds from healing.
Yes, probably I would say that at the cost of being dubbed as a typical West Pakistan, by the Bangladeshi population, I would say that Bengalis by nature have been violent. Well, whether you call it imprudent or not, when our leadership went to Dhaka University, in 1948, Qaid-e-Azam, and he said that the national language would be Urdu. Whether it was politically correct or not, it was expedient or not, it's a different thing, it's a different thing. But the student immediately resorted to violence.
So obviously they thought that the culture, the language was threatened.
Yeah.
So they did react to it. I think any society would react to that.
You can react. Of course, you can express your concerns, your disagreement. Yeah.
I will differ with you on this issue. Bangladeshi, people, I would think they are quite mindful of their basic rights, their political rights, their cultural rights, and being, the much educated and conscious about their, conscious politically, they struggle to achieve what is available to them, and it is not granted. We have seen that in our history, we have seen that pre-1947 history, and we are seeing that even today. Why, a group of students is on the roads demanding their rights. So they are conscious people, this is how I see them, and they become violent if those rights are not granted. That is the issue.
Well,
Otherwise, it is not in their blood.
Well, partially I would tend to agree with Ambassador Bukhari, but let's see 1952 movement of Bangla Andolan, for instance, it turned violent. It turned violent because the mistakes were made by the then government, who resorted to...
By the administration.
By the administration, who resorted to use of power, as they did, the government did recently in Bangladesh. It turned violent. They turned violent against General Muhammad Irshad in 1987. They turned violent against, well, what would you say?
He has a point that when there...
If I may, let's say, do you know the circumstances when how their Banga Bandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, was assassinated along with his own family members, and even the cattle that was, parked inside his house? because, well, I don't condone that, what happened to Major Dalim, for instance, who carried out this massacre, in the house of the Prime Minister, his own father of the nation. Well, his wife was violated by the son of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and as a result, he turned violent. I mean, he killed the whole family. And then you come down the way movement was took place against General Ziaur Rahman, for instance, and then it continues, for instance, even today. So, well, I would say
coming to what Riaz said, that it's quite obvious that a society which is aware of its rights, a people or a nation which knows its rights, they tend to defend their rights also. That is something which makes a nation. Now you can see around the world that the people, for instance in Algeria, the Algerians know their rights, and of course their movement was peaceful, but it continued over a long period of time. So similarly, I would agree with Riaz that instead of thinking that Bengalis are aggressive or violent.
Here, Imran, I would again disagree with you. Don't call them Bengalis. They are Bangladeshis.
Achha, okay, right.
They are citizens of Bangladesh.
Okay.
And they are Bangladeshis.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
So Bangladeshis know their rights,
yeah.
and they have a history of defending their rights.
Yeah. This is how I look on this aspect of the things. Because in the history they have struggled.
Yes, certainly.
Political parties were established over there.
They have fought for their lives.
Yeah.
They have definitely fought for their rights, definitely. But I would say that instead of, let's say, having a peaceful settlement of disputes, they get excited quite easily. They are highly irascible people. Actually.
Peaceful settlement of dispute, I think it's something which is missing in many societies in South Asia also. So it's not only in Bangladesh that we find lack of peaceful settlement of disputes. One question, Riaz. Yeah. Has this quota movement dented the popularity and credibility and authority of Sheikh Hasina?
Yes.
And to what extent?
Killing more than 174, young students.
Thousands injured.
And a large number
thousands
of them
arrested.
Arrested. And obviously, a large number of people are, are there on the streets demanding justice to them. So it's the Prime Minister's credibility is at the stake. And look, what the international community is, talking about.
But she's the Prime Minister without a mandate. I mean, 27%.
That's
what the local people also say.
In these elections held in, beginning of the year and the earlier elections as well. And international community also reacted to those elections.
The Americans said that we will not accept the results.
And obviously whatever the government gives briefing on this issue, on these riots, these are mostly one-sided. According to the media, the briefing conducted by their foreign minister was almost one-sided. And it is in the media. Certain ambassadors talked about that.
American ambassadors.
They should also, see what is happening on the roads and the streets. How people are being detained, imprisoned, and and the third-degree torture is being used against them. Human rights violations are being, their basic rights are being violated.
Ayaz, coming to you, how will this dent in her popularity and in her authority affect her way of ruling the country?
Well, seeing her track record, I don't think that this is going to mellow her down. Probably, in my view, call me a pessimistic or whatever, but I think that she is going to get harsher in her approach towards her opponents. Maybe she will concede some of the rights or their demands, to some extent. But what we know, her as a person, a highly egoistic person, and all that. not being flexible enough to accommodate the opposition as such, and the way she has handled, you know, the dissenting forces within the country, the way she has violated the human rights, you know, in general during her 15-year rule. I don't think that she is going to come to terms with the opposition forces, which may result, you know, if I, being at the cost of calling myself, you know, too prophetic, you know, about that, I would say that probably the armed forces would be compelled to step in, you know, and if the situation really gets graver, you know, it is already grave, if it gets graver, then armed forces would certainly step in and will put her aside, and probably new elections would be called.
Yes, you final take.
I would agree with, you know, Ayaz, to the extent that domestically, yes, she will continue, you know, the autocratic rule over there. But given the, you know, the criticism she is receiving from the international community, particularly from the United Nations, you know, its spokesman talked about this issue and called upon, you know, restoration of, you know, political rights, you know, and respect of human rights, and these issues will, you know, continue to follow her.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this was all we had for this program. Now, according to reports, the situation in Bangladesh is returning to normal, but there is still an uneasy calm that is prevailing there. These protests which we witnessed, they did not just happen. They are symptomatic of the deeper malice in the society, a society where which has refused to heal the wounds of the past. It's also a society where which refuses to accept and respect diverse views, and refuses to accept resolution of issues through dialogue. Now, this is not only in Bangladesh, this is in many other societies of South Asia. We, the countries of South Asia, the people of South Asia, we need to understand that bloodshed does not help resolve the issues. Violence does not help to resolve the issues. We need to understand the importance of dialogue to resolve our issues. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back.